2, 3. We're live. Good night, Belizeans at home and abroad. This is the Belizean Affairs Show number 164 for Friday, 5th of July, 2024. We're grateful again for your tuning in to hear what we have to offer, and we're hoping that whatever we offer tonight may accrue to the well-being and benefit of our people and country of Belize. Thank you very much. My name is Leonard Brackett. I'm the chairman for tonight, being Friday. Constitutional and legal matters, case law matters, and others. And we have Ms. Sharon Pitts, attorney at law or panelist member. We have also Mr. Roody Wade, who chairs the Wednesday night program. Another panelist member is available to us. We don't see yet in the background Mr. Brackett. I'm not sure if he's going to make it tonight because he was planning other activities. So if he does show up, we'll let him on the show itself. But in the meantime, I've asked Mr. I think we have two of the spits. Sharon, I think Sharon is logging in.
Yes, good night.
Just a second. Let me see if I can get rid of this other avatar that you have here. Let me see if I can. Oops. Give me a second. Let me Okay, Sharon.
Oh, we lost her, so you got to crop her in again.
No,
there.
No, wait. Sharon? Hello? Sharon?
You took her off, Leonard.
Yeah. I took off.
But I was there twice.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I just took off the previous one.
Yes, so it's one of her now, so it's not two. So it's
okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay, so I fixed that. I was speaking to the public and then I disappeared from speaking to the public to try and adjust what was happening in the background. So I just need to apologize to our viewers and the general public for interrupting the program just now. We had asked Ms. Sharon, please, to grace us with a prayer. And then Mr. Wade is going to, after Mr. Pitts grace us, Mr. Wade is going to do us a reading, as we normally do for our program. So I'll yield now to Ms. Pitts for our prayer for the night.
Heavenly Father, as we gather here this evening, as only you can bring us together in the speed and quickness of prayer and spirituality, we give thanks for the very ability and all that you've given us, that we have voice, the ability to feel, hope, pray, and come together. Special thanks and continued prayers for our people who have been affected by Hurricane Beryl, as well as that by grace others of us were spared from the full brunt. For the people from the eastern, the Windward Islands, way from North to Trinidad, Tobago, Carriacou, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Petite Martinique, Grenada, Barbados, Jamaica, Cayman Islands, that Haiti was spared, Belize, and as the weather condition, cyclone continues through Mexico and into the U.S., dear God, pray for protection, and as only your Son Jesus can do, that the winds and the billows may be chided and calm. Thank you, God, for the very beauty of nature, and help us to protect the same as we continue as a people, dear God, and realize the awesome majesty that you have created, dear God, and that we can be stewards of the same even while we enjoy the richness and bounty. Help us, as in all hurricanes and natural disaster, to remember that we have the ability to ease the burdens of other people in other nations and that we come together as humanity, dear God. Thank you, thank you. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Fitz. Your mic is off, Leonard.
Thank you very much, Ms. Spitz, for such a gracious supplication on our behalf and the rest of humanity as well. And I would like to yield now to Mr. Wade for a reading.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you again.
You're welcome, sir.
Miss Fitz, thank you for that prayer, for the nation and for those who had been affected by this hurricane. Thank you very much you know, um, for that prayer. And welcome our viewers, both at home and abroad, and our supporters who support us to our 164th edition of Belizean Affairs. Again, Ms. Spitz, you're welcome. And
Thanks.
I will um, I will continue Matthew. My word will be from Matthew chapter 24, 22 to 32. It says, "And in those days had not been cut short, no human being would be saved, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Then, if anyone says to you, 'Look, here is the Christ,' or 'There he is,' do not believe it. For false Christ and false prophet will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. So if they say to you, 'Look, he is in the wilderness,' do not go out. If they say, 'Look, he is in he is in the inner room,' do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever the corpse is, there is the vultures will gather. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven will be shaken. Then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." That's my reading from Matthew 20 to 30. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Uh, Thank you very much, Mr. Wade, for such a good reading. And I think it might fall into a part of what we're about to advocate tonight.
Okay.
Um, for
We
tonight,
didn't we didn't we didn't discuss that, right?
no, sir. We've been lucky. We've been lucky.
We
Things
did.
been falling in line recently
Yeah,
without
yeah,
prior planning,
yeah.
and so
Is it called up
We have
divine
more reasons.
intervention, something like that?
We have more reasons than one to give thanks to the Lord. You know.
Oh yes, oh yes.
So, um, anyhow, um, for tonight, what I want to discuss in the beginning of the program is the issue of provisions for period of public emergency. And I'll read a citation from the Constitution. Let me turn this thing sideways so I can. Yeah. Uh, Belize Constitution, Cap 4, Part 2, Section 18, Subsection 1, reads as follows. In this part, period of public emergency means any period during which, as stated in paragraph A, Belize is engaged in any war, or, as stated in paragraph B, there is in force a proclamation by the Governor General declaring that a state of public emergency exists, or, as stated also in paragraph C, there is in force a resolution of the National Assembly declaring that democratic institutions in Belize are threatened by subversion. That is to say, an internal upheaval, the attempt to overthrow the government, either by military means or any other. Under Section 2, under subsection 2 of the same, Section 18, says the Governor General may, by proclamation, which shall be published in the Gazette, that is to say, the Gazette in the days when this Constitution was put together for us, was the main organ of the government means of communication to the professionals as well as the public at large. Of course, we also had Radio Belize, and we didn't have like TV stations and other stuff that we now have. But the general idea was that whenever the Governor General makes a declaration or assent to a declaration made by the House, or finds it necessary for the Governor General, at the recommendation of the Prime Minister or any minister acting on behalf of Cabinet, that the Governor General is informed and requested to assent to a declaration of state of emergency. That declaration must first be put to the Governor General in such a way as to justify abrogating constitutional rights, because that's what happened under states of emergency, a temporary abrogation of civil rights, human rights, and other state policing and authorities that is then being granted on a temporary basis for 30 days at a time. And as we discussed in our last Wednesday program, they can go ahead and ask for the first 30 days, and they can ask for an extension of that 30 days if it seems like it's necessary for them to continue in the war or to continue fighting against those who are trying to take over the governance of the power by force or any other means. And if there's any rebellion, none of which we have in our country so far. We don't have any state of emergency for any war that's going on. We don't have any subversive powers taking over our governance institution. And therefore, to the Governor General to assent to those arbitrary and capricious use of powers beyond the constitutional, in other words, that violates the Constitution or derogates from the Constitution. Whoever is making that request have to submit substantive enough information, as well as the laws that are going to be broken under that state of emergency. There must be attached policies and indications where if a person transgresses any of those SOE conditions, that person is then liable to suffer the consequences as per the law. But that must be stipulated in the documents that are provided to the Governor General. And the Governor General should not be in the situation where, as had happened before, signing a blank check for the ministers or the departments to fill in the difference. That difference should be filled in before it gets to the Governor General's attention for that ascension. I'll go back to the portion of the Constitution that I was reading. And I read part 2 just now. Subsection 2, by saying the Governor General may, by proclamation, which shall be published in the Gazette and in our modern era, any other media form by which the public can be informed or could be informed adequately for them to know that there's that SOE or state of emergency in place and the conditions that will allow violation of that state of emergency so that people can take caution and don't find themselves at the wrong end of the law. And it continues to say, declare that a state of public emergency exists for the purpose of this part. I'll go on to read subsection 3 of the same section 18. And subsection 3 reads as follows. A proclamation made by the Governor General under subsection 2, as I read above just now, of this section shall not be effective unless it contains a declaration that the Governor General is satisfied. In other words, enough explanation, clarification, and whatever other information the Governor General may deem necessary to feel satisfied that the Governor General, as in the case now, which is a lady, would put her signature to assent to that SOE. I'll read paragraph A of the same subsection 3, which says that a state of war between Belize and another state is imminent, or that a public emergency has arisen as a result of the occurrence of any earthquake, hurricane, flood, fire, outbreaks of pestilence, outbreak of infectious diseases, or other similar calamity or catastrophe. None of these things we have as a condition under any, I would venture to say, any of our past as well as present SOEs. And if everybody wants to challenge and or think that I'm over speaking, check the facts for yourself. Come back to me and point out where my errors exist according to those facts that you can provide. Because as far as I'm concerned, as I said, which is why I made the statement so widely encompassing, all previous SOEs that we have had, none of them was the outcome of a war or a potential war. None of them was the outcome of any subversive activities in the country by anybody trying to take over the government or any government department by brute force or any of the other, except in the instance where Governor General Young had given the UDP a state of emergency during the pandemic. And that state of emergency was exactly as the Constitution states here, was an outbreak of an infectious disease. Remember COVID? It's not too long ago. Or other similar calamity. What are the calamities that exist or existed before? Why our present government has put in place a few SOEs and renewed them. Well, not in some cases, none of them actually legitimately went and had those things renewed. They just extended it as per their decree or ministerial fiat for extra time. And now we have the Prime Minister and the Minister of Police, as well as the Police Commissioner, stipulating that they had discussed in Cabinet the idea of trying to go for 90 days for the present bogus SOE. And we pointed out to them, as required by the Constitution, they can only go for 1 month at a time, up to a maximum of 1 year. But I guess they're going to bamboozle the public by saying, if we can go for a whole year without following the procedures, by the way, we could just as well go for 90 days then, and that shouldn't be a problem. It is a problem if you're not following the constitutional order of business. You cannot hard and pull the Constitution and just do what you want and violate the Constitution, because then you're acting as a scofflaw. And that is basically why I keep complaining to our present government about their conduct, because they keep going ahead and making these bogus SOEs and trying to get these SOEs to trump the Constitution. I would want to read some more on this issue, but that paragraph A is substantive enough for me to be able to get to the point that I was trying to get at, and that is that there's no state of war between Belize and any other state, as is stipulated here or required here, or that a public emergency has arisen as a result of the occurrence of any earthquake, which we don't have, hurricane, which we almost had one. They don't make an SOE for any hurricane. They never made an SOE for Lisa. And we had a direct hit with Lisa. Those are the times when they should have gone ahead and make an SOE in order to justify people not running around the street trying to vandalize other people's property when other people are out of the city, maybe taking refuge up in Belmopan or elsewhere. Those are the conditions under which, the police authority is vested in order to protect life and property. We don't have any national flood, as could have happened if this present hurricane that just passed by had came directly to us, because then we would have had nationwide flooding. And a lot of roads would have been broken up. People would not have been able to get to where they need to go. People would have been in dire straits. Those are the conditions for an SOE. So when we, on this particular platform, advocate that the government should stop create bogus SOE that are not done in the proper manner and order, and then go around and use those SOE to victimize who they want to victimize, we're hoping that when we do these programs and we read these things that people would pay attention and learn and understand the context of what is it that we are hollering about. We're not out there just hollering because we want to malign the present government or any other government, for that matter of fact, because it's not just the present government that we have been speaking about or speaking to in terms of what needs to be done. They hold the powers now. So now we have to talk to them in terms of what they're doing wrong. But when UDP was in power, I was doing the same thing with UDP. I was advocating for them to do what was right. That's my interest and my concern, the well-being of my country and my people. So anyhow, uh, like I said, I could have read a little bit more, but I don't want to belabor the point. I want to discuss as much as what I've read. I read from the Constitution, and I'll just turn over to, first of all, I'll go to Mr. Wade for his comment, and then I'll turn to Ms. Pitts for a more legalistic perspective if she's able to assist with that. Mr. Wade, are you please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for outlining that in terms of where we see the state of emergencies that past and present government had instilled in this country, and we had we have been talking about this same
Mm-hmm.
situation for some time now, that it's not done the right way, right? To me, it just seems that you have a government that they don't like where they happen in some part of the country, like for instance the south side, where they mostly inhabited by our black youths. Um, you see now, and what I'm saying is that it's always happened in the south side. That's what I'm talking about, right? Okay, you outlined, Mr. Chairman, about how a state of emergency should come about,
Yes, sir.
right? You stated that out as per our constitution, the law of this land.
Yes, sir.
And we have been seeing that past and present government no care about our constitution. They have their own law. I call them Gestapo laws, right? Because they don't like where they happen, the south side of Belize City, so they just pass state of emergency so that they could kangaroo up the black youths, call somebody in a gang, and a lot of people are caught up, these bogus state of emergency. Innocent guys, Miss
Mm-hmm.
Pitts, innocent
Yes.
people get caught up, right? Something that they have no knowledge about. I mean, they shouldn't be a part of that period. But now you see it now, and I just try to lead the people on to showing them, it's a repetitious cycle. But why? Why are these state of emergency been inflicted against our black community now? They include Roaring Creek. Who lived at Roaring Creek? They include Cotton Tree. Who lived at Cotton Tree? So I have been saying this all along, guys, as a former law enforcement officer, right? Things like this had never been done in that kind of manner. Yeah. Never. Like to say, Mr. Chairman, there's a right way and a wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Lately, it's all been the wrong way. So I have said this before. I said when they pass the state of emergency, say for instance in the south side, Mr. Chairman and Ms. Pitts, right? What you think, and it's a continuous cycle, what you think the so-called bad boy then going? Eh? They're not then going up north,
Mm-hmm.
then going down south, because there's no state of emergency there. So it's useless, bogus. Now, I would see with the government pass on, when it passed one state of emergency in in the name of the tri curve crime and the gangs, inflicted in the entire country, man. Because like I just stated, if they pass it at south side, they will run out of the south side. When the commissioner of police and all and they raid one house, when they set, they know where the gang leaders and they when they go there, they put them in fine. Nobody. Nobody.
Mr. Wade,
Right?
Mr.
And
Wade,
yes, go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
on that same point, when they raid the house then, they usually end up they hurt innocent people,
Exactly.
damage up
Innocent
people's
people.
property that
Yes,
they
we
don't
see it.
get to repair or compensate for.
We see it
And then they walk
always
away,
done.
and then it haul gun out of people where they complain to them
Yes.
about the violating the people in
Yes.
right, and then
Yes,
they
Mr.
turn around and
Chairman.
want to arrest them, beat them up, and carry them, and then want to charge them for resisting the arrest, the
And
illegal arrest.
and look how they
Go
do
ahead, sir. I'm sorry about that.
when they broke down them doors and how they treat the mothers and the children, man. You know, they don't have no empathy and no sense in what they're doing. Unjustifiable. And the things, the words that are said in front of these children, right? What they would like to do to them, right? And it goes on, Mr. Chairman, right? So all I'm saying is that, you know, I don't see the sense of it. I just think that they pass these state of emergency to punish people, to punish the lead black boy. Then, like I said, the prime minister from his own mouth say, "Oh no, well we round up and we send them a COVID for 30 days for go cool off." What is wrong with that man, man? He said it's not my word. It comes from his mouth, right? The leader of this country. And he said, you know, because then a bad boy and all, and they sell weed. The man there, total disrespect. You know, they take into consideration. It's a serious matter, man. What happened to the innocent lives? What happened to the grieving mothers, the parents, after these gang crimes that are being committed, that the repetitious cycle. He will use several here and just send them for cool off on 30 days. And now even go further, Mr. Chairman, they say 90 days now, right? And like nothing, you know. So I call on them, you know, you want to do it right, man. Call on state emergency in the Prime Minister constituency in Orange Walk, in Corozal, in PG. Because, Mr. Prime Minister, the gangs where the commissioner said, the police minister said, we know them. He said, we know them. We know the bad apples. Well, the bad apples, Mr. Man, when on a pass the state of emergency, they go elsewhere in this country, okay? They go dormant, then go hide for the lead 30 days. Then after that, they come right back and continue the mayhem 24/7. But anyway, like I
You
say,
know,
it's all,
oh,
you know,
sorry.
I can't see for the hell of it, you know, why these people are doing these things, right? I can't see it, right? So wrong, right? And they are not doing it right, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
So,
you very
you
much.
know, that's all I, you know, got to say on that. You know, I want to give Ms. Spitz a
Thank you very much,
chance to,
Mr.
you know,
Wade,
yeah. Thank you,
for
Mr. Chairman.
obviously the contribution. I'll go back to Ms. Sharon Pitts, and I'll preface what I just mentioned, and that is that our attempt was to try and address the issue of the bogus SOE first and foremost, because this, in order to get a state of emergency, you have to meet a certain threshold or criteria,
Exactly.
none of which these past SOEs allowed any legitimacy for. Secondly, when they, even if they were to have done it legally and it had some constitutional muster, the way they implement or carry out the responsibilities authorized under the law, they defeat it because they carry out what you call malicious, vindictive, and hostile behavior
That's that's what
towards
I call it too.
large sections of the
Yes.
community. They don't go and arrest who they, as they say, they know who the people are. They don't go and arrest them. They don't go and do an investigation to figure out who those people should be and use the police powers currently on the book to go and arrest these people. What they do is that they turn around, they know that the people them that are out there, the young boys them out there doing the crimes, shooting at each other or whatever, they don't make them gun within one hands. They don't got no money to go buy no guns. They don't import none of them guns. They don't have the ability to go abroad and get them guns and travel and bring them into the country. Those guns are being afforded to them by local henchmen who send these young men out there to go commit these crimes because these henchmen are getting paid for some of the crimes that is being committed. When the kids then go out there and commit the burglary, the henchmen they get part of when they steal. When they send them out there to kill somebody, they get a payment and then call them up and send them go do the job. But the police officers, if they're doing their proper investigation, CIB were involved doing this investigation. I know CIB is capable of figuring out who these people behind the scenes are, and we should be able to grab these guys so that they're not sending those young people out there to go commit no crime. And once they know that they grab the big guys, the young small ones them on the street, they want to take caution because they don't figure out that they're next. But some of these same people give political contributions to some of the ministers and some of the other people, and they don't bother them because they're friends. They do political work for them during campaigning. So at the end of the day, unless the system is going to do its job correctly, unless they're going to issue an SOE under the right conditions, legally, then they need to cease and desist them malicious because they're doing these things with malice. Like in law, there's a phrase that is called malice aforethought. That is to mean expression of an action with malicious intent, with prior contemplation or prior strategy. You commit the crime under the color of law with malice aforethought. All those conditions should enhance the penalty of some of these lawmen and political officers going to jail because they're aiding and abetting those criminal actions. But I'll yield back to, since I'm not a member of the bar, I'll yield to someone who is more likely to be in the position to give us a perspective. Of course, she may not necessarily give it because she's not being directed by the bar or representing the bar in this particular discussion. She's just giving us the benefit of her legal training and citizen concern perspective. I yield to you back, Ms. Wade.
No, Ms.
Well,
Pitt.
Sorry.
attorneys in Belize, we're Belizean.
Sorry.
So we're a part of a community and family and citizens of Belize. And as Mr. Goldsmith said, not only people have rights, but countries have rights. And it's the duty of each and every Belizean to defend Belize's rights, as well by virtue of being within the profession, legal profession. We are all who have been called to the bar officers of the courts of Belize. So we have another responsibility. Judges are not expected to descend from the bench into the public arena. So that, and then there's just as a person and human, you have to speak conscience. When you see certain things happening in your country, you can't be complicit. Sometimes you listen, right? Sometimes you wait to see where the waters settle and so on, right? And if Mr. Brackett, the other Brackett was here, Greg, he would have been playing a bit of what he would have observed on the news. And I want to borrow his phrase. When they speak, they expose themselves. Their words betray them. You mentioned Mr. Leonard, malice aforethought, mens rea, right? And then sometimes you have people who have that, but they what Creole call underneath, right? Or they have sophistry, or they disguise it, right? What I want to say is that, Mr. Brackett, I'm grateful for your reference to the Constitution. And it all goes back to that. We have a Constitution and we have a rule of law. And we can't say it enough that Belize is not a police state. Belize has common law, rule of law, Westminster style parliamentary democracy. And even while these people are experimenting and assaulting our constitution, you see when we have these protections, how they transgress and flaunt the constitution. To our Belizean people, I want to say, mothers, fathers, young people, elders, we have to take charge of ourselves, get back to a bit of our Sunday school culture, the right from wrong, Sunday mind, Monday, Monday mind, Tuesday, and so it goes. Take care of one another.
Amen to that.
Take charge of us.
Your mic is
Your mic,
muted,
Sharon?
Sharon.
Sharon? Sharon?
Your
We
mic.
can't hear you.
Yeah.
Yes, take charge of ourselves.
Thank you.
That not everything where they free up, good for no. I said it more than a decade ago. They want to give people a sensimia, the weed, the sense of the Mary Jane, so that
Lose
they
the
go
senses.
heck their senses.
Mm.
People deal with those things recreationally. They are psychotropic, right? And they lie that you will be a part of some enterprise. It know what happen, right? Wake up, Belizeans. What I want to say, though, with respect to the Constitution and what is happening, if we just use this as a very example, you know what come to mind? The Bill of Rights of the Constitution, and again, policies of state. And the executive are bound to the Constitution. It's that their whim fancy, and they can't act as though they can violate. They're not a law unto themselves. They can't be extra constitutional. They can't be extrajudicial, and they can't be extra legal. And Mr. Brackett, you read the Constitution. We have several learned, formally learned men and people within the government and the executive who ought to read the law, know the law. Constitutional law is the first thing you have to learn and understand in legal training as a student. No, I want to say that you're always learning it too. What I see though, and I'll go through quickly, is that if you look at the Bill of Rights, those states of emergencies, elements coming out. Well, first of all, failure to abide by the Constitution of Belize. And Mr. Brackett, you said that things, we grew up even before we became lawyers and people who would have been exposed to a formal constitution. Old people, and it was a Creole colloquial. I get this thing from a good source, this, the Gazette. And the Gazette is still formal. My position is that you had the government printers that privatized, that's another story. But when something was published in the Gazette, you knew that it was law, it's gazetted, it's assented to, it has to be published in the Gazette. Because when you're limiting people's freedom, when you're seeking to act under the Constitution or any law that people ought to be able to rein in and say, I obey this because we are law-abiding citizens. You have to be, that's your touchstone. That's your imprimatur. That means, if we look up what imprimatur means, it's hard to explain, but there are certain things which compel you, which are second nature, which has efficacy, and you know when it's right. Otherwise, you have a disquiet. You know when it's wrong. And what I don't want to stray from, Bill of Rights, this section 5 or so of the Constitution, Mr. Brackett, The early part, after description of the countries, after the preamble of policies of state, the policies of state that fail this country, not the constitution, and the failure by those who have the duty to abide by the constitution and make policies of state which align with the constitution to be doing what they are doing. This is more than intransigence. This is a flagrant violation of the constitution.
Contemptuous.
Freedom of movement is under attack. Not only under attack, it's being transgressed.
That's part of what I'm going to go ahead and read
Yes,
afterwards too, but not right now yet.
freedom of
I'll finish.
speech, the liberty of the person, freedom of assembly, your right to work, deprivation of that, or to earn your livelihood. You see how many things? It can go on. And then what you have, the presumption of innocence is affected, right? The right to be read what it is within, and we can go into the substantive law of the constitution, the words, the prescription, what it boils down to be told within the quickest time what it is in a way you can understand the accusation so that you can respond if you want to. Those things are zealously guarded. And the rights of those people who are treated as the least, those at the top, your rights are not protected. Because when you start to unravel at the bottom, somebody might chance you. You have persecution and they can come at you. And as one song says, one of these days you're going to hear a voice say, run. Who you going to run to? You're going to run to the law for rescue, but there'll be no law. We don't want that. And that is why we must zealously guard with our strength, our conscience, intellect, or intuition, and the elder traditions that we see, this heritage, good heritage. What I want to say is that I don't know if Mr. Greg was here. I don't listen to news and media much, I must say. But certain things will come to your attention when they bother people, right? And it seems that there is a notion, and beyond the notion, and Mr. Greg would say they expose themselves by their words. Do no homework. See who and who were saying on the media. We're not going there yet, or not yet, but it seems they feel that they have the option, the ability to turn some kind of wheel and say, stop on this. And we might want to go where Bukele is going in El Salvador. Well, you know what?
That's not going
You
to
know
happen.
when
But they keep
communism
repeating it.
is
They keep
considered
repeating it.
creeping.
They keep
Huh?
repeating it. They keep repeating
Yes.
it.
By thy words you shall know them, and you know what?
Yes.
Bare
Yes.
face. So anybody will pretend not to understand,
Hmm. Very
understand it's
serious
very, very
situation.
clear. And I'm saying that is why we have to ask our people to get back within to good behavior, because you know what? They will bait you, they will give you marijuana, they will take away your jobs and leave you on the mercy of the world. Then they will treat you without mercy. You know, in certain countries, you had Bantustans. My late friend,
Miss Pitts?
Ambassador
Miss Pitts?
Bert Tucker, who traveled Africa, other places, used to warn
Sharon?
the Bantustans are coming, but we won't allow that in Belize.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sharon, for such a lucid presentation and clarification. I want to read again, not again, but I want to read the next part after the last part that I read. I read um, paragraph A of section 3 of section 18 of the Constitution of Belize. I want to go and read paragraph B. which follows. And in paragraph B, it's going to expand and show additional things. And there's a reason why I'm doing these readings from the Constitution, because it's part of trying to help our Belizean people get to know what's in our Constitution, what these gentlemen are after when they talk about trying to come to you to solicit your guidance as to what should be taken out of the Constitution and what to put in. Unless you know what's in there, unless you understand how it happens, how it works, and how it affects you, there's no sense for them to come to you to ask you what you should put in or take out.
Mr. Brackett, allow me to say no two
Go
things.
ahead, go ahead.
Quickly, no, with the floods, you have mosquitoes of war. No, so if you see me moving, it's because I have a few biting me. But one of the things I need to mention, Mr. Brackett, you see how you as a good citizen take the time and the care. Mr. Wade, you're here plurally, week by week, and the listeners looking after our constitutional liberties. I want Mr. Greg to bring when he can and play it so you can hear. I don't have polite words to say. The English language is such that we are fluent. But it seems that new words would have to be invented. But the vulgarity, Mr. Brackett, you see how you, like a gentleman and a scholar and a down-to-earth person, and you, Mr. Wade, person who, raised Belize flag, know what it is to protect a country by your duty to Belize, your experience abroad under the liberty and freedom of the U.S. Constitution, which has at its roots the common law as well. Why I'm saying this, the nerve, if our mouth have 32 teeth and each of them capable, they have bad nerves. You know what happened? That the attack is already exposed. You see how you are reading from the Constitution, Mr. Brackett? Well, guess what? They have to say that if they have to change the Constitution or amend it, to deal with them people, they won't do it. You know what is dangerous and treacherous about that?
They've been doing that already. They've been doing that
No,
already.
what I'm saying, Mr. Brackett,
They're making
that
double
would
flag.
be an attack now of depriving people. If a few people, a relatively small known minority, is out there that they know and that they can deal with and curtail and bring into obedience of the rule of law, they are not to be allowed to use that as an excuse to take away and dismantle our constitution and put something in it. This is nefarious, this is wicked, this is vulgar, and this cancer must not be allowed to take root and sleep and expose itself. You have to preempt that. So it's time not to speak nice and shy, but to say, you know what, not touch the Constitution with that. No, God, do not touch it. Not on our watch.
Sharon?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. The
Right
points
on
that
that,
we're
Ms.
raising
Fitz.
right now was I was hoping that would come by on the next part of the presentation that we have for the night, not before our program is over. So probably people will hear it twice, because when we get to that point, then we'll come back right again on those specific points, right? I just want us to finish read this part here so that I can get out of this part and move to another section. As I prefaced earlier, we were reading from part 2, section 18, 1 and 2 and 3. And I finished reading paragraph A of subsection 3. I wanted to read paragraph B of the same subsection. And I'm going to go ahead and read it instead of elaborating. And it says that action has been taken or is immediately threatened by any person or body of persons. That is, that the Constitution is telling whoever is trying to get an SOE put in place and the Governor General who is supposed to sign it off, what are the conditions that would validate or legitimize or constitutionally allow for the derogation of your human rights and your other rights that these people try to do under these bogus SOE. Because with the SOE, then they are authorized to do that. So they hide behind the SOE. But these are some of the conditions that must be met for the SOE to be justifiably put in place in the first place. And it goes on to say, that is that action has been taken by some military people trying to overthrow the government, or is immediately threatened by any person or body of persons of such a nature that 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 is so extensive in scale as to be likely to endanger the public safety or to deprive the community or any substantial portion of the community of supplies or services essential to life. In other words, if the government is being held hostage or the country is being held hostage, the provisions of food, if, let's say a group of people decide they want to bring the government to its knee, right? By taking over the sugar industry by military means or any other, or whatever we have that we export that would cause the country to get economically strangled, that constitutes an endangerment as well to the governance system. And then I want to read a part here. By the way, like I said, the reason why we are reading these things is because there are different parts of the Constitution that we are trying to present to the general public. And we want them to understand how these things are contextualized, how it affects them, right? We don't want people to just, go ahead and buy one copy of the Constitution and just read it from front page to back page and have no contextual understanding or awareness as to what is it, because not everybody is legally trained to have legal experience. I'll go ahead and read subsection 4 of the same section 18, which says as follows. A proclamation made under subsection 2 of this section may be made so as to apply only to such part of Belize as may be specified in the proclamation. That is what they're hiding behind when they go and they do this SOE, like what Mr. Wade mentioned earlier. In some of the areas, like Southside and others, they don't go and put on SOE right now in Coyote part. They know they have serious gang problem, and the gang members and they terrorize the hospital and terrorize even the police there. They go and they shoot up the police stations, them and things like that. That's the time to go out there and say, okay, well, you don't have the means to be able to control the situation. It get out of hand. Put one SOE then. But they don't put it. They don't put it on our Orange Rock, where the Prime Minister lives, that he and his constituency should not be encumbered with this kind of deference of their rights. Okay? And he don't want his constituencies then get mad with him. So he not victimize them willy-nilly like ready to victimize somebody else. I would like to finish with that part. It says, the emergency area. In this subsection called the emergency area, in which case regulations made under subsection 9 of this section shall except as otherwise expressly provided in such regulations have effect only in the emergency area. In other words, we just caught them again like we caught them the last time when they did the last SOE, and we said that was not going to be the last SOE. We caught them right now again saying that they put out an SOE and there's no regulations to show what violations people will have to commit in order to validate that SOE being properly put in place. And they did not notify the people. And I would venture to give them one little leeway to say, okay, well, maybe they never want the gang members,
Mis-
them, or whoever they want to go
Excuse
after.
me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Can you, Greg would like you to read section 18, 9 and 10,
Yeah, that's where I was
so
going
that
right
they
now.
could show the Constitution,
That's
the
where I'm heading.
of the Constitution. Oh, okay, that
That's where I'm
the
heading.
SOE is legal, no? So,
I just
okay, thank you.
quoted section 9. Let me read
Okay.
it over again. In this subsection called the emergency area, in which case regulations which they have not published so that people can know what they are violating, the SOE should not come out without regulations. And before the Governor General sign, or the Deputy Governor General, who has a habit of signing on behalf of the Governor General, when they do these dastardly things, okay, before they allow the ascension or the signature to go on the document, these regulations must be stipulated as part of the package. Like in one instance before, an ascension was made as a blank check, as we referred to in the last week presentation. Well, this week, Wednesday, and tonight, again, I made mention about it, that they got a blank check assented to, so that they could go back and put in whatever they want to put in whenever they're ready, or whatever they want to put in. That's bogus. That's not the proper procedure or protocol. But I'll finish reading. The case regulations made under subsection 9, which is where we are going afterwards, like I said just now. That's what Gregory was asking for us to read.
Thank you.
This section shall accept as otherwise expressly provided for in such a regulation have effect only in the emergency area. I'll skip the other parts, part 5 and others. I'll go to, let me go to 9 since Greg is the questioner.
Yeah, 9 and 10.
Subsection 9 reads as follows. During any period of public emergency, the following provisions shall have effect. Paragraph A reads as follows. The Governor General may make such regulations as are necessary or expedient for securing public safety, the defense of Belize, the maintenance of public order, and the suppression of mutiny, rebellion, and riot, and for maintaining supplies and services essential to life of the community. Which of these provisions are being violated? Or which of these
I would like
provisions
to. I would like
needs
Miss
to be
Pitts
put in
to,
place?
if she, after you finish now, to let the public know what of these, what has been violated of this, so that warrant that bogus,
We're
state of
pointing these out
emergency. I
because
mean,
we want people to
that's
know
what the public
that
would
there's
like to
no,
know.
yeah, there's no,
What they have done wrong
uh,
that warrant the state of emergency? What?
that's why he called for the regulations
Yes.
to be put out there. And we just caught them again in this last SOE that they put out there, not having fulfilled that obligation.
No.
And a few days after we tell them about it, they say, oh, yes, they had gazetted it. And how come they can't come up with the gazette date? How come they can't publish it? We haven't been able to find it on their website. But it's supposed to be a public affair or a public issue where the public must know what violations they're subject to being caught up in this SOE with.
So we are
My
doing wrong.
observation,
Go ahead,
remember I
sir.
said that this, it seems to me, will illustrate a lot of transgressions. And when I say that there's a disquiet and these things have, you see, you have the substantive constitution, right? Of course, supreme. Anything that is not in accordance with that is ultra virus, void, not good. You have the procedural aspect too, in that, really and truly before there is any action that could be said to be valid
or
under
granted.
any state of emergency, the very features and requirements would have to be fulfilled,
Exactly.
including what Mr. Leonard pointed out, the promulgation or putting forward of the regulations. And they are not left as, you know, in certain areas of the law, even the statutes which are under the
Let me ask you a
Constitution.
question, Miss Space. Look, I want to interject here a little bit. So, so all the time that they pass in these state of emergency, saying that because you are a gang, you belong to a gang, or you are a member of a gang, right? That's why we they arrest you and with the passes SOE and that are where they care you first. So they're outrightly
Arbitrary and
Miss
capricious.
Pitcher trying to tell us that they are violating the constitution, right?
Exactly.
Well, when you have
So
liberties being assaulted this way, you look at the Constitution and you're able to ask by what authority. When you see these features of a police state, you hold up your Constitution. And
exactly what
Mr.
it is.
Brackett mentioning
Police state.
blank check, police state. And when you have interference with these things, the remedy, remember I said where there's a right, there's a remedy.
Yes.
Wrongful arrest, false imprisonment, damages, habeas corpus. Remember on an earlier edition, I believe one of you gentlemen mentioned that or brought attention to some part of what they were attempting to do as well, to say that by some law they would the writ of habeas corpus would not apply. Remember, I was saying that is one where when the keeper of prisons, the police, if there's unlawful detention of a person, if a person is away, secreted away, you go to the court with
Miss
the
Pitts
least
and Leonard,
formality to have the
Mr.
body. And
Chairman,
let me just finish.
they keep doing the same
Another
thing over and over.
another
That's the
element.
point.
You
And who
notice
hold these
with
people accountable?
constitutional matters, the Constitution, we don't want to lose what Mr. Brackett is showing and highlighting, and yourself, Mr. Wade, that the Constitution prescribe mandate that it must be open and clear, readable to the whole public at large. By what means? Under what process? Which area? Why? How? Which authority? So you look at the procedural and you look
And
at
the
the
and
actual,
the elements
but
of
notice
violation.
the element of secrecy.
Exactly.
Secrecy. That is
Exactly.
disquieting too. And then I think you gentlemen did a very good job of mentioning how they go to houses, grab people, wrong people, broke
Oh,
down
yes.
door,
All the time.
traumatized children, say things. Children have rights to be protected. So what you have is you can't, even if children are in areas where they're exposed to crime and so on, the state of Belize is what we call, I think it's parents patria, in the place of a parent or supreme parent and the court. So you have that paramount welfare concern too. And all these ABC, XYZ,
Sharon,
NGOs and agencies know
Sharon,
to
on that
parrot
point,
that. Why
Sharon,
and how and where are the people saying?
on that point that you just raised just now about the state having the ultimate parental prerogative in terms of the society as a whole, that to a point where the state can even trump the parents' their rights as regards
But
to
Leonard,
how.
remember
Wait,
we're
wait,
talking
wait.
about a state of emergency, right?
Yes, yes,
Does
yes,
that
but
does
yes,
that
yes, but she
constitute?
brought up something that was critical just now, and I need was
Oh,
to
okay,
elaborate on it,
okay,
just to make clarify for the
okay.
general
Yeah,
public.
yeah.
Sorry, the state of emergency
No,
is
no,
like a
no. Wait, wait.
condition
Sharon,
that they
Sharon,
would create. But the
Yes,
Sharon.
state of Belize exists as the state
yes.
of
Yes,
I
Belize,
Sharon,
a
understand. I
nation.
Sharon.
understand. understand.
I just need to close the thought that I was trying to convey just now, if you permit me, please. When you brought up about the government being able, the state being able to trump the parent, if a parent commits a crime or an act that derogates from the rights of their own children, the state have the right and the power. We, the whole state, the whole community, have a right to see to it that you do not commit any crime against even your own offspring, which is then why that part of the law comes into play where why we have this. In fact, the Constitution, the preamble directs the state to make sure that not care how young the kid or the child is, that the child has an equal amount of rights. And the fact that the child may be defenseless or not being able to defend itself, it is the prerogative of the state to then step in once that parent have abrogated their right or
Yeah,
have committed a crime.
yeah,
Because you only give up your rights by committing a crime. Then you become
yeah.
a potential ward of the state. The state then have control over you. But if you don't commit any crime, the state have no rights or obligation to tamper with your exercising your inalienable rights. When you forfeit your rights,
I,
then the state steps in, but they can't be stepping in under the color of law and commit a crime against you or anybody else while pretending or saying that they, as the government, on behalf of us, the people, have the right to victimize anybody that they want. That's not how it works.
my
But
thing
back
is
again
that
to the point, to the other point. I just brought that
Miss
up just
Spitz
now,
and Leonard,
Miss
right?
Spitz,
I
because
just like to
you
say
pointed it
this.
out. No? Go ahead,
My
Mr.
point
Ed, you
is
was
Miss
about to say
Spitz
something.
and Leonard, right? Chairman, right? You know, who hold these people accountable, man? And it's over and over, Miss Spitz. It's not the first one that we talked about, and it will not be the last state of emergency that they will inflict on this on the nation, right? It
You
will not,
see, you
and
ask a
nobody
question.
hold these people
You ask a
accountable,
question.
right?
Now,
My
in
thing.
other countries, you would have large public interest groups which would take the constitutional case and take it to the court. As I said, the court will not descend into the public arena. The matter must be
Brought.
brought to the attention of the court in the proper way, and habeas corpus is the quickest way. Now, there's another thing. Even the state as supreme parent. I did a case in the matter of baby D some years ago, where a baby was in prison, and it was that was illegal, unconstitutional. And it brings to mind something too, that before anybody is at the prison legally in the proper course, there must be a warrant for imprisonment issued by whom?
The court.
A court of law. So you see how our separations of power is crucial under our rule of law. So if the police detain under the constitutional generally, and you hear people talking about a 48, no, it's so sad that no, that's a colloquialism. That may 48, but at least people know if they cry out that. So if they detain them, they must take them before a court. Why? So that charge would be read, it's scoped by the court. The law, the
Takes its course.
police, it's not a police state. You have deprived somebody of their liberty. So take them before the court, read a charge if justified, and the court is it which has the authority to remand somebody to prison. The keeper of the prisons usually acts on a warrant of imprisonment properly issued by the court. And you have bail, you go back to the court, right? Unless you get bail from a court or unless you're released. You have things
That's
like
not how
parole,
it
of
used to
course.
happen. Leonard, you know that Miss Spitz, that's how it used to happen. Where
No,
did
no,
we go
no.
wrong?
Sorry. No, 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 no. That's not how it used to
Used to
happen. In Belize, we have to say as a nation and people under the rule of law,
no,
this is how we as a rule of law country happen. This is how it happens legally. And anything which happens other is a denigration, a derogation, a bridge, flagrant violation, and so on. So we are not to give in and say and lament that how it used to happen in our history. No, this is how it happened. And if it happened 1,000 times against that, this is how it is to happen. That was wrong, and we won't allow that kind of intransigent. We have to say, come back to within the rule of law. And if anybody not sure, we have freedom of speech and conscience. So always ask by what authority.
Um,
And if we don't understand, by what
Sharon,
authority?
Sharon,
Yes, sir.
can you give me a second? I want to touch that same section about the different freedoms before the show is up, and
Yes, sir.
we only have 14 minutes left. So let me finish read off this little piece of thing here, so we could transition, no, or go to that particular part, okay? Because I would like to add some comment to what you were saying there too. But let's get to that part.
Yes,
Let me
sir.
get out of this. If you'll allow me. Okay. So I was going to read um, what empowerment they have when they grab the SOEs them or create them, whether it's bogus or legitimate. The Constitution speaks to it, and um, Section 19, Section 18, subsection 9, and I read paragraph A, and I want to read paragraph B and get out of the rest of this because it's a lot of information and we're trying to run it, like I said. So let me read B. Any such regulations, which they did not publish in this last SOE, by the way, or at least the public is not aware of any, may empower such authorities or persons or may be specified in the regulations to make orders and rules for any of the purposes for which such regulations are authorized. Now, when they get a blank check, then they get an authority without the regulations being stipulated. That's another contravention. Are authorized by this subsection to be made and may contain such incidental and supplementary provisions as are necessary or expedient for the purposes of the regulation. So I would like to ask that whoever knucklehead process this last SOE on behalf of the government, please go back and do your job correctly or hire somebody who could help guide you to do the right thing. You know, take good money and spend, go hire Mr. Jerosowicz, go hire Mr. Mendes, and a lot of other people, hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, take that much money for to get proper counseling or proper legal advice or to get proper guidance in terms of how to follow the Constitution, because it's not like, well, it's not right here in black and white that I'm reading it. So you don't have to go to no expert. You don't have enough lawyers in the cabinet. Read the damn thing and follow the correct order. Implement the correct process. Legitimize the powers of government in action. Rather than bastardize the Constitution, oppose the Constitution, relate to the Constitution with disdain and disrespect without any consideration and pretend like it doesn't exist or no careless whether it exists or not. Do the right thing. That's why I'm going to keep losing case after case after case. Anyhow, I'll get out of this because, like I said, it's kind of lengthy. It's a lot of
One of the important things you
reading to learn.
mentioned, Mr. Brackett, that you read, and I just want to
Go
highlight
ahead. Go ahead.
before I forget. Uh, if I understood you correctly and I heard rightly, the on the reading of the constitutional provision, I think I started to say it. You know, you have the Constitution as a top law, then you have laws or acts of parliament or statute,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have what we call subsidiary legislation or delegated legislation,
Mm-hmm.
so that regulations can be made by ministers, right? But it has to
And
come still
parliaments.
from the rule-making authority.
Wait. Not prime
And
minister.
what
Sharon.
Listen to me, man. Listen to me, Mr.
Sharon.
Brackett, please.
We can't
Please.
skip this point.
But
Let's
Mr.
not skip
Brackett,
this.
if you
Go
listen,
ahead
I
then.
will
Go ahead.
make the
Go ahead.
point in the best way
Okay.
and
Go
know
ahead.
where they do, man. You
Go
have
ahead.
to remind people the constitution, statute, and then delegated legislation
Uh-huh.
in the proper way, usually to ministers. But what we have to highlight, notice this most important one, where you're taking away or interrupting the constitutional Bill of Rights liberties. The Constitution maintains the responsibility and authority in the governor general, the head of state, to make the regulations, not passed down to any minister of government. So it's not delegated legislation in that sense, right? So regulations are normally would say delegated legislation, and then another convention which is adhered to strictly in constitutional law and the wider law is that delegatus non protest delegarse. A delegate, an authority delegated to a particular authorized
Functional,
uh,
functionary,
person or functionary cannot be passed on and delegated to another.
without
So
a
that
proper authority.
even if it is that the minister of government or the executive or the whole of cabinet want a state of emergency, and even if they write it up, the governor general as a head of state ought to hold true to her oath of office, his or her oath of office, uphold the
If they
Constitution
undermine her,
and read the Constitution
they
and
undermine
make
her.
sure that if you're assenting to, you assent to
Let it go.
something that is constitutional. If you're
Exactly.
signing regulations or if regulations are required to be signed or prepared, that those are put in place.
Which is why I keep requesting that the government provides funding for the Governor General's office to have a legitimate constitutional advisor and stop having to depend on the way they have it now. The Governor General have to depend on the Attorney General's advice, legal and technical advice and input when it comes to legal matters. That's bogus because the Attorney General work for the Prime Minister and the members of Cabinet, the way they have it set up. So when they take and whatever they send to the Governor General to sign off on, the present way they have it set up, the Governor General presumes that, okay, well, everybody has dot their T's and did what they have to do and everything is legit. And she go ahead and, like they say, rubber stamp. That's not the way it's supposed to operate. The Governor General is supposed to have on his or her staff legal, constitutionally trained and knowledgeable individuals so that they can look at whatever cabinet or the house or any government office brings to them internally to the Governor General's prerogative and domain, and be able to advise the Governor General whether or not she should or should not assent to those things. But the way they have it now is that the Governor General automatically assents to what the Attorney General recommends.
One thing, though, Mr.
It's
Brackett,
not supposed to be
is
like that.
that you mentioned prerogative, and that is why we had an interregnum in even England in 1688, when I think during the reign of Charles I, long story short, King Charles I, it returned with parliamentary, certain other conventions and so, but you mentioned the Governor General's prerogative. So yes, prerogative of mercy and certain other prerogatives. And some constitutional people would say, well, the Governor General assent and that's taken for granted. But what we have here is a clear prescription, as you would say, Mr.
That's
Brackett,
right. That's right.
mandamus, the dictate of the Constitution. And I dare say that a reading of it, it's very literal. There's no mischief to it. There's no mix up with it. So if you look to your oath of office and you look to the Constitution, it will help you and allow anybody to do the right thing and to hold fast. And if Mr. Brackett, you are
If they
saying
have
that
good
there
intentions,
should be some independent legal
constitutional,
person that
uh,
the person holding the office
it's
of
needed.
Governor General
It's
can
needed.
look to, then I'm not saying nay to that. But nevertheless, it seems to me that this is so important in the Constitution that it was clearly put. And the Constitution, that's why people think you put everything in Constitution. But the Constitution is very succinct. And remember, it's born out of 1,000 years of constitutional conventions and
Excuse me.
honor. So these things are to be honored in the performance and compliance, not in the breach or in some convenience which is away from the Constitution, right? And we respect heads of states because they carried this high office for the people and country of Belize. And it's said to be somewhat ceremonial, but it's more than that. There are certain prerogatives, but more so, I would say, focus on the responsibilities, the Constitution, right? And the
Sharon,
conventions.
when we decided to keep our country under the Commonwealth, as the first and bargain that we made with Mr. Price, we knew what we were after and what we were doing. We were not green behind our ears. And it served us well for 50 odd years so far.
No, no, I disagree
Okay?
with you. Nobody made a bargain with anybody under than as I understand it. They were
I'll provide you
supposed to have
some
independence, then
I'll provide you
transition.
documentations
But
further than
two, hold on for
for you to
me.
read.
What I am saying
I'll
though,
provide you.
please.
The
Hold on.
objective
What
said
I'm
I'll provide you the
saying,
input.
what I am saying, Mr. Brackett, please listen to me. What I am saying clearly is that we had a Westminster style parliamentary democracy, and Eddie Lang the Younger, the jurist and the loyal patriot of Belize, and another attorney were able to go to England. And then when they were being told, oh, we thought the heads of agreement and something was what Belizeans wanted, they were able to say no and insist that what we want, I'm saying direct, and they were on the BBC and so on, what we want is a Westminster style parliamentary democracy under the Commonwealth for at least 100 and something years, meaning in that sense, forever. And, and of course, the defense
I will send
guarantee.
you some of the information and I will publish it as well
Mr.
on
Brackett,
this same
whether you
site.
send the information or not, you see this is the thing we get with, right? We have people who will sign this and sign that. Not about any
Sharon,
bargain. It was
Sharon,
providence of God
Sharon,
and wisdom, and
I,
that we had
wait,
a constitution,
I made
because
a statement.
that
Wait,
might have been as good as the
Sharon,
paper it was written on,
Sharon,
but
I
what
made a specific
concretized and
statement.
what allows to realize a Westminster style constitution was
I
that
made
the
a,
puss may come out of the bag,
Sharon,
the puss come out of the bag, and who made they pretend they want Westminster style and never want it.
Sharon,
Mr.
not a
Brackett,
bag.
I can't say more. There
Just,
are certain things, so everything good for talk.
just a minute.
Eat good for talk, as old people say.
I made a statement, an emphatic, direct statement just now to which you objected to. That's the
Which
point,
was? Which
and I'm
was?
coming there.
Sorry, sir. What was it?
When you said no, 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 we did not make any first time bargain. You're talking to one of the person that was involved with that first time bargain, my dear sister.
Mr. Brackett,
So let me
me
finish.
never
No,
make
no,
no
no.
bargain because me never may make any bargain with anybody like that. I didn't have any trust
Sharon.
for that. And I
Let
don't
me finish
understand
talk.
certain things about
Yes, let
constitution
me finish.
and what it was when bargains are made with certain people. So personally, respectfully, I am saying what I believe safeguarded me as a Belizean and my country was that whatever, you
Sharon,
see, just
Sharon,
like our
please.
constitution, I
Sharon.
respect what you say, Mr. Brackett,
Yes,
but you
but
see, we have
please
a
let me have a
constitution,
chance to,
You
and
got,
these
speak to
people are
on
not
this point.
two
honoring
more
it,
minutes,
right?
On this
So
particular point.
bargains with these peoples are never
Sharon, you cannot
honored
keep going
except
on
in
and
the
on and
breach.
on and on and on, and I don't get to participate. It's a two-way
we
conversation.
got 4 more minutes there,
Okay?
Mr.
I
Chairman.
So
Four
let me
more
yield.
have a
minutes.
I
let me have a
yield.
chance.
Sorry.
Yeah, let me have a chance. I'm
Apologies.
begging.
But I maintain my position.
I'm not
Amen
trying to
to
have
that.
an argument with you. I made a statement
You
of
got
fact.
three now, Leonard.
Yeah, I made a
You got
statement of
three
fact.
now.
I know where the basis of that fact lies. And because you objected to my statement and said, no, 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 that was not so, I offered to provide you with the evidence.
Mr. Brackett, sorry,
Wait,
when
let me
I
finish
said no,
talking.
no, no, I mean in terms of I not enter bargain with certain things because I know what I would rely on. So whether bargain or not with whoever, that would always be honored in the breach in my consideration. What
Okay,
I know is we had a
time is
Westminster
running.
style
Time
system,
is running. The show is going
coincidence,
to finish, and
providence,
I'm
or
not getting a
whatever.
chance to finish
But
my statement.
I
Let
don't
me finish.
want to say
Finish.
it how I say it. How I say
Okay,
it to
let me
you
finish.
separately, Mr. Brackett. Not
Okay, let me
everything
say
good
it.
for eat, good for talk.
Let me finish. Say it. I'm saying to you, Sharon, and the general public, that we had a fast and bargain that was struck with Mr. Price. That discussion and information is just like what you have nowadays, where people put classified information into diplomatic pouches and are set aside, and for decades and years after, generations after, in some instances, people never know what transpired, what happened, how come we got from where we were to where we are today. And without that knowledge and that basis of background, a lot of people are left in a state of a limbo of ignorance. Okay? I made an emphatic statement saying earlier that we made a first and bargain with Mr. Price for him to get independence under his leadership, but
Oh, I thought it was the
we were
country
only
getting independence. You
no,
see,
no,
these
no.
are
That
the
was long
things
before
that
independence.
these
So
are the things
that's why
that
you gotta let me speak sometime.
Yes, but
You have
it's
to
not
talk with
about
the
him or
point to
anybody
land.
getting independence.
Wait, wait, wait.
I know him.
Okay,
I
let me
know.
finish though. Let
Then
me
think they
finish though,
can't
please.
pass my craw. I don't play
Okay,
with anything there.
okay.
Mm-mm.
So he wanted to have independence under his leadership because at that time POP was his juggernaut in the political environment, and we had no power or say other than the fact that we had become an effective opposition.
Mr. Brackett, I
The,
need some hours to discuss and dissect this, right? But I will listen, but I know I have a view that perhaps might help, it might align, or maybe it's how you present it, and I respectfully, have me yet, right?
okay,
Okay?
I don't
I
need
understand certain things with
Sharon.
constitution
Sharon,
and so on, right?
I'm not trying to convince you. I'm trying to tell you something
No,
that
I'm just saying,
it
right?
seems
Because
you're
I'm
not aware
careful
of.
when it
And if you
comes
don't let
to
me finish, say it,
when it
you
comes
will
to
not
certain
address the
affairs of
essence of what
state,
it is that I'm saying.
I am.
You're just acknowledging that you thought I was talking about after independence. Let me finish talk.
No,
That's all I'm
I'm not,
asking for.
Mr. Brackett. What comes with
Let me get the
independence
information out of my
might
head. If I drop down
be
dead today and I
presented
carry it with
at or
me,
after independence, but we could go from the early and bring forward, right?
okay. When the gentleman from Whitehall came to us, the Belizean opposition, and the government of the day under Mr. Price, before independence was granted, Mr. Price was told in no uncertain terms that he cannot get independence if he does not work with the opposition and come up with some kind of a way where we can take the whole country into independence as a united front, or as a people who everybody is on the independence. Because anyhow, let me stay with the point. I was going to divert around. And Mr. Price decided he was more interested in having independence under his leadership rather than continue haggling with us back and forward for years and years and years to come, and may not have had the chance to have gotten independence under his leadership, because that was part of the stipulation that was set out.
Mr.
So,
Brackett, but you see,
but let me
this
finish,
is
though,
the
Sharon.
very thing with the history of Belize. We have to, if we are talking
Sharon, but you'll
independence, let us
interrupt me.
get
You'll
into the
interrupt me.
nationalist
We have
movement
to add 1 extra
right
time to the
after
thing that.
World War One and pull
Yes, but
forward. And
you'll take me in the woods
what
with
was
a whole lot of different things that
independence?
has nothing to do with the point that I'm
But
trying
it
to bring to
has
your
to do with
attention.
it, Mr. Brackett. Let the people understand there was
People need to
pretense and
know. They only could
pretext,
know
but
if you
what
get the
was
information
real.
out. I'm trying to get it out.
Mr.
Permit
Brackett,
me
but
the privilege to get it out.
respectfully,
Stop
in two
filibustering me.
minutes you would not be able
You're
to
filibustering me
buy.
all the way through. I get out 2 words out of my mouth, and you come back with a different perspective or a different point,
Mr. Brackett,
and I
it's
can't
not
close
a
the point that
different
I'm
one. I'm saying, like
establishing.
you said, the pre-independence, but let's
Don't.
go
Okay,
way
stop
to
filibustering me and let
pre-independence
me get a
then.
chance to finish what I'm trying to say. Okay?
Mr. Brackett, you're the host. It's your show. I'm a respecter of persons. I have a view, and
Sharon,
I think
that
it's
still ain't help me.
important
That's
that
not a
Belizeans understand
all that
the
does is string up the
historical
time.
trail leading
All
up
that
to
is
where
doing
we
is
were.
string up the time. The show is going to finish, and I'm not going to finish say what I'm trying to say. Mr. Price wanted independence under his leadership. He saw that he was losing grasp of the political affairs of the country, and he agreed for us to have the independence within the Commonwealth. He wanted an independence within Central America as a republic, Belize becoming an independent republic in Central America, and associated more with Central America than the Caribbean and the Commonwealth. And we put a foot down and said, no, that will not happen. Therefore, the British will not grant you what the United Nations had already been stipulating they should grant. The gentleman from Whitehall came to Belize, spoke with Mr. Price and his people then, spoke with the opposition, and we decided, okay, we won't filibuster the independence process anymore, but it has to be done within the Commonwealth. All because we were safeguarding Belize against a Guatemala hegemony to try and take over our country. Had we become an independent republic and England was not involved in our country thereafter, which is what these leaders are trying to take us into, we would have lost our country a long time ago, because some pretext would have occurred where Guatemala could have said, well, we are the one who start one war, or we killed them, people like what I mean, the tried the other day, and turn around and they could invade us. And that kind of false justification. But because we had the British on our side, and the British diplomatic corps was backing us up, we were able to prevail. The British didn't have to tell us what to do to solve the problem. They could have left us, we just haggle among ourselves there in Belize, and Mr. Price and carry the day, because he had the political wherewithal to command the day. That was our trump card. And we struck that fast-chance bargain, which is what I said to you earlier. Mr. Price agreed that, okay, he will go ahead and accept the independence, then set the date for the independence. Everything went on, but it had to be within the Commonwealth. That Belize being in the Commonwealth as we are talking today, did that happen by accident, is my point. It happened as the result of agreements that were made contrary to what Mr. Price was trying to do. I'll send you some of the documents, like I said, and I'll put them up again, because I'd put them up already on the internet, but because of this conversation we're having
Mr.
now,
Brackett, you
I'll
don't
put
need
them
to
up again
send
for people
me.
to read for
What I
themselves.
am saying is that
Okay?
if you and Captain Nick Sanchez was a youth leader, and you can take him as a credible person from when it was said at Majestic Alley, what was the whatever for Belize and British Honduras then, and said before, and all I'm saying, Mr. Brackett, is that we have to see that it went out or came out of a process, as you rightly said. Look at the history, but if we
People don't
want
know
to
their history,
put
which
it
is
in
the
the proper
problem.
context, sorry.
People don't know their history. Too
Look,
much of our
but that
history
is
is not
why,
written.
we
And
can't
folks,
just sketch through and say so and so wanted independence. We need to go into the real history, and it has to go back deep and early from the roots of
I
the
did offer you the
nationalist
documents of the
movement,
history,
through as
and
it was
you
in the
didn't look. You
nationalist
said,
party post World War One, right? And if we want, we could trace, as you would readily more than anybody, back to 1765 and pull forward, or maybe earlier. All I'm saying is that our people went through something, and I will not sit here and say anybody may want independence, right? Or anybody get independence, or anybody agree to independence. I believe, and I fervently
and
believe, that throughout our
and
passage, the
NIP
people of
means
Belize,
National
and by
Independence
divine
Party.
providence, the people of the Belize safeguarded this country. Yourself, a key person, other people, but I'm saying before your lifetime, and throughout for you. And then there, but you, if we, and it's hard to say it in 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I don't even like to go there, but
Do it
the
in
thing is,
60
if you have a
seconds.
glancing statement to say,
Sharon,
well,
Sharon,
so and so gave
the
us
brief of
independence or got or
Sharon,
agreed to it on a fustian bargain, then
Sharon,
it's to
the brief of
not
Belize,
let people
the brief of
understand
Belize
why we are where we
could be
at
done in
with this
60
threat,
seconds.
which is
Let's do it
still
in 60
threatening to
seconds.
derail our sovereignty and to take apart our whole country. And if we do that, we run the risk of losing belief. Not anything that I want to be argumentative, Mr. Brackett. It is important enough, and I respect you enough, sir, that I'm saying you're right. make we go way back, but we can't pick at certain place. And it's very difficult, but if we want to go back, we have to go back to the roots. And as you said,
National, okay,
people don't know the
okay.
history.
Let
Let
me
us
chime
put
in.
the history on the table.
Okay, let me chime in then.
But you want to clear one room in at 10 minutes?
Yeah,
That's the way to
Sharon,
do it in Belize.
let me chime in for a minute, please. Belize, as a country, had a lot of different political parties and different political involved individuals. Some at leadership levels, others, just supportive action or activities for individuals. But nevertheless, the bottom line is that a lot of things happen in our country that a lot of the people never know when they happen, when they happen. And as of today, they still don't know that it did happen. Okay? When people don't have knowledge of the past, they don't have a foundation in which to stand on to maintain the current status, and their future is in peril then as a result. Because that's how people get bamboozled and people
That's
get
why it's
led
important
astray.
for people to understand whether it was really about independence or the transition,
And I
and
agree,
independence was a convenient detour. And that is why we are still here with this problem,
and I agree.
because it
Let,
was
let, let,
never
okay.
meant that Belize would be independent. The game was being played, and it's still being played, and we have to let people understand so that they know what it
They're
is.
still playing a game with us. They're still playing the game. You know,
Sharon, I want to think.
this
I want
the
to
end
think,
game.
I want to tickle your fancy.
The end game they will achieve
Do you think
taking
that Belize
Belize
has
into a republic. That will be the end game.
Sharon? Thank you, Mr. Wade. Sharon, do you think Belize has a conditional independence?
You don't have a conditional independence. We had an independence. Post independence, what was happening
I
is
didn't say had,
that
I didn't say had.
we don't
But I
have a
want specific.
conditional independence. We are
I asked for a
sovereign and
specific direction.
independent. What happened
Do you
is
think that
that
Belize
the
have a
machinations were
conditional
still running,
independence?
and the machinations were still running. We managed to achieve or attain the independence, which was coming. It was coming. It was coming. But always the real. And then the machinations that it would be a transition. And that is why by the time you see the ICJ, how do you explain why people would surrender or line up the people in a referendum to surrender our independence or sovereignty
Because they are
or
traitors.
territory to an ICJ? That is
They
the
are
best
traitors and
answer I have
treasonous.
for you. It's a machination. But I am careful and I am respectful and I know I play one game. We have independence. We have sovereignty. We have a country. We have a national identity and all that goes with it as one country, one nation within the United Nations. That is where I place it under God. One people, one country. I will not, I not take poetic license,
But Sharon,
manner of speech. I
Sharon,
not get into
Sharon,
diplomatic doodle
Sharon,
by saying
think about this.
anything other than what is in
Think
the
about this.
interest
Why do you
of
think
belief
UP?
with
Why do you think
clarity.
UP try to use this canard of getting rid of our constitution and getting rid of our head of state? Because the head of state is not a local Belizean elected head of state, or they are not chosen by us, the Belizean people. Why do you think we have all these kind of canards and games being played out,
Mr. Brackett,
and
because
the
we
war
as
from
a
way back
people
still being
have
waged
not
today?
maintained a clear stance. We have to have clarity. You can't get into confusion and have these people pull you. If then they play one game, we can have, and I've said it, just 60-minute position or stance has to be. We're independent,
The brief
we're
of Belize must be
sovereign,
done in
we
60
have
minutes.
country, we
You
have
just said that you
territory.
cannot do
You
it in
know why
5 minutes, you
Belize
cannot do
start
it
to
in
lose
10
and
minutes.
things start to unravel? Because we idle and we got a savannah when they say, go tell cow good
Review this
morning.
tape that we
If
just
we
played, okay?
breaks them, there's a line people should not cross. And
Yes,
if
but
you
Sharon,
maintain that and
Sharon,
repeat that, better you repeat that over and
yes,
over
but
and
Sharon,
over. That is
go
the
back
safeguard for Belize.
and
When you
review the
start to
program
entertain other things,
over the
you run
weekend.
in and you walk into a diplomatic trap. You know what? Intuition will hold we safe, you know. This is not discourse about some theoretic country. This is about for we beloved country. So we have to say, you know what? As I said, that not everything good for eat, good to talk. The enemies listen more. They listen more. The island declaration. I am not a diplomat. I
Sharon,
am not a functionary of government. But the
Sharon.
cocktail
Okay,
chit
okay.
chat and the
Make I chip in
internet
now.
chit chat, if we're not careful, we
Let
must
it be a
know
two-way
when we
discussion.
state our
Sharon, let it be
country's
a two-way.
position. Not be fanciful. I'm
But make
not
it be a
fanciful
two-way.
about it. I am very
Make I get a little
boring
words
and
in once in
clear.
a while.
5 things I could say: country
No, no, Sharon,
sovereignty,
Sharon, you can't.
United Nations, people identity, and territory. Very, very clear. Spirituality.
Sharon, you keep repeating those same points, and I'm trying to explain to
Sir,
you.
respectfully,
Let me finish.
the best people who
Stop
maintain
filibustering me.
constitutional rights at
You
court
cannot filibuster
repeat the
because that's not a two-way
constitution and the strong
conversation.
position.
I shouldn't be put in a position where I have to
People
require or
argue
ask you
away their case,
to be
Mr. Brackett. You've made
just
your
but
case
you
in
don't
the
put me in a
first
situation
minute.
where I
Why are
have to
you
demand
arguing
an
away your
opportunity to
case
speak.
now?
You
It's
should
not
require that of
about
me.
me. I have lost the argument, sir, but I know what
It's
am
not
my
an argument.
stance. I know what am
It's
my
a two. It
stance.
should be a
And I'm
two-way
saying it
discussion.
as
It shouldn't be an
an
argument.
attorney and as somebody who I think
But
you
it should be.
understand law more
But
than me. But
no,
with
no,
respect
Sharon,
to diplomacy,
Sharon,
I hold on to the island declaration. That case,
Sharon.
now not everything
We're
you,
having a two-way discussion, but I
sir,
have
it's
to
not
participate.
two-way. I am
You're making it a
assuming
one-way.
the enemy listen more than our people. They say, I know
I
they
don't work
listen
with
to
the
you.
enemy right now.
Let
I don't
what
work
they
with me
listen
and
to
you.
you more.
I
You're
don't
not
work with me and you
concerned.
right
Well, I
now.
understand. William the silent. Sometimes better you gossip and talk idle, but you have to
Uh,
have discretion. I'm very
okay, but
serious, sir.
make I
There
say
are
something?
certain things when it comes to affairs of the state, you know, get careless about.
Sharon, that's the battle I'm waging
Everything
today,
for Belize,
yesterday,
nothing is
and the
secret,
day
but if
before
the enemy
yesterday.
they listen, there are
Yes,
times
but
when they
I'm
say,
trying to
you
say
know
to
what,
you,
careful.
I can't save my country and its people from the people and the people they elect to lead them unless those people in the country get the knowledge that I'm trying to transmit to them.
Mr. Brackett, that is one
That's
thing, but I am
impossible.
saying
That's
that
why the people. That's why the leaders in the country have the country the way they have it now
Mr.
because them
Brackett, yes,
bamboozle and
yes, and
filibuster
that's why poor
and they
us
don't
way
educate the
backward in
people.
this country have
My
it that
challenge
way.
and
But what
my
Mr.
task
Brackett, can
is
you
to convey
agree with me
information.
that there are
I'm
certain
trying to get
things
a point
that
across, and you're not giving me a chance to speak. What I'm talking about right now.
Mr. Brackett,
I
I'm
want
not
a
in a
two-way
room with
conversation
you
with you and
and two
I.
other people who I trust to hear certain things ventilated and
Yes,
speak.
but you
I
cannot do
agree
all the
with you,
talking
Mr.
on
Goldsmith,
yourself.
and said
That's
no
my
secret.
problem.
The people have a right to know. So let
And
the
I need to
people know.
educate them.
Let
And
them
therefore,
know.
you
But
need
I'm
to let me
saying
get
I
out
have
what I have
one
inside
certain
my head
degree
and
where
share it.
sometimes
People need to
I
know.
resile to, you know what, discretion. But I listen, sir.
The platform objective is to educate. Okay?
Educating
And I
people
hope
is also saying with certain
every
things
one word come
which
out of my
have
mouth,
to do with the safety of
you have
your
a whole
country.
discussion over.
You're talking
Sharon,
to the Guatemalans
Sharon,
at the same time,
we're on a
Mr.
public
Brackett.
program right
Educate
now.
them.
We're
Yes,
on a
it's a
public program
public
right now.
program,
You
but
cannot
we
be
have to
filibustering every word that comes out
educate
of my
our
mouth.
people too.
That is not a two-way discussion.
Mr. Brackett, I have made presentations, you know, when I see certain
But
people in
and
the
all of that.
audience,
But
I
you have
will and come again. And I've said at one public
Sharon.
presentation, the enemy here and the
Filibustering
listen,
is not a proper
because
way
we
to have
were
a
being,
two-way
oh,
discussion.
it's filibustering. Mr. Brackett, respectfully,
We
I want to
have
take
to give each
advice.
other opportunity
I
to
have
speak. I
said
listen to
certain
you.
things,
You have to
and
listen to me. You don't
I
have to
go
agree with what
into
I say.
the
I don't have to
quiet
agree
of
with what I say.
silence. They're not about agree, they're about silence right now and listening, and I yield the time. But please add back your time, man, because it's important.
All I want is to
You get your
participate.
time, Leonard. Go ahead.
Okay? All I want is to participate. I have something to contribute, and I'm wanting to contribute it. And I'm saying my effort to contribute it, from my vantage point, is one of trying to provide information for people to know and be able to react to, because only the people could save the people, especially from these type of hyenas and drunkards and these people that are screwing up the country can only be brought to account by the people who they are running roughshod over. And unless the people are given the opportunity to come to a point of recognition of that reality, there's no two ways that we ever get to save the country. 100 of us could get together and have nice discussions, debates on what facts or whatever, and the general public learns nothing or gets no information out of it. And at the end of the day, we have served no purpose in terms of saving the country before we lose it. We have to work to get the people informed. We cannot keep everything to ourselves. We cannot keep it from making the enemy not hear it, because we got to deal with the enemies too at the same time. While we deal with the people who need to be
Well,
educated.
say that we have a conditional independence in Mr. Brackett. That's further for the enemy. But I know I said that, you know, hear that out of my mouth, not in poetry,
I
not
ask
in
you that
prose,
question.
and not in
I ask you that question
anything.
because it's
No, no, no.
relevant.
That's not a
It's a
question you
relevant
ask me.
question.
It's not a question that I will have
It's
raised
a
about my
relevant
country because I
question.
now put my country sovereignty into any fanciful question. Sovereignty. We have sovereignty.
148 there,
Sharon,
Leonard.
Mr. Wade,
You
just
wanna
1 second.
give me
Sharon,
Spitz closing, and then I.
I
uh-huh.
yield, sir. My position is we have sovereignty. I know into fanciful question and answering. Sometimes, of course, there are times when we whatever, but right now, where we are as a country, we have to have clarity for our people, in my view. Maybe I'm wrong, and Belize can maybe afford for me to be wrong, right?
Okay. May I?
Belize
Well,
can afford for
it's
me to be
always
wrong. I
May
it's
I?
always say
always a
that.
pleasure.
May I? Okay.
It's a,
So, just a minute, Mr. Wade. As I'm saying again, Sharon, if we who are charged with the responsibility to advocate against the enemies of our country don't do our part or withhold the information that the people need in order for them to be effective arbiters of our own future, then we will fall short because we will not be living around here for eternity. There are others who are coming behind us who must have that knowledge and that ability to be able to know what guarantees us or gives us the ability to be able to call that little piece of land that we call Belize or patrimony. And while we have conditional sovereignty that you are not recognizing,
Mr.
I'm
Brackett,
using
we
that
have
term. Wait,
sovereignty. Belize has
I'm not asking for an
sovereignty.
argument. I'm not
Belize
asking
has
for a rebuttal or an
sovereignty.
argument.
I will defend my country by saying Belize has sovereignty.
We have sovereignty, and
Belize is a
these are the same way we
sovereign
have
nation.
ideas, have what
Belize is
the
a
Hague
sovereign
recognize the
nation,
sovereignty.
full sovereignty within the United Nations.
And then they play with the sovereignty.
Playing with it is different. That's why I not play with it. That's why I'm very clear. We have sovereignty. If you got a UN got talk, we just need to say we have sovereignty. If then people got talk that UN that just stick to that, we
What
wouldn't
defense
there.
what defense does
Sovereignty.
Belize have? Any country that is sovereign should have the capacity to, as a minimum, its people be willing to die to preserve their sovereignty. Any country that cannot do that as a basic and who have leadership
Mr. Brackett,
guiding
you
them,
just said to
who have
preserve the
leadership guiding them
sovereignty,
without that as a
to
priority or
preserve
as
the
a,
sovereignty.
it's just a sham. It's a game they're playing with us. It's a mind game.
Well, if they're playing a mind game, we must be clear. If they think the game, we know we have sovereignty. Are we going to bend out a shape for them mind game? I keep saying we have to start to just thinking at the box.
No,
Thinking at the box.
the
We
people
get
the people are the arbiters. The people are the ones who make the decision who they elect to guide them down what path. We have a group of people that are being elected right now that appear to have no patriotism and no serious concern or interest in Belize has been the patrimony of all of us. They have some other hidden agenda that has nothing to do with patriotism and the guarantee and security of our patrimony. Okay? The people are the only ones who are going to be able to resolve that problem. Whether today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now, or 100 years from now, or 1,000 years from now, whatever the case may be, it is only the people that will be able to save the people. They cannot save themselves from these hyenas under the present mental state that we have in our
As
country
Mr.
today.
Goldsmith used to say, the good Lord and the people of Belize. So that is clear. But the people of Belize have to, maybe one person might listen and say, you know what?
Sharon, in
All we
those days
need
when
to
Mr. Golson was
maintain.
making that kind of statement, he was making a statement that people had patriotism. People believe in prayer. People believe in religion. People
Mr.
were,
Brackett,
you know,
Mr. Brackett,
today, nowadays, we younger
people
generation coming
still
up
believe in prayer. People
uninformed.
still have patriotism. That has to be your core.
All right.
I
So
understand what you're saying.
we have
I
come to
understand
the
what
end of
you're saying
Oh
tonight's
by
yeah,
way of
program.
the environment.
We could
we went
continue this
we gave
discussion
some
at some other point.
extra 20 minutes
Yes.
here,
Yeah,
Leonard.
I know. Mr. Sharon,
Anyway,
again,
you
Miss
know, it's
Spitz come in,
always a
let me get
pleasure.
my word in, and I had to get my word in
Let me
because I
echo
have to go,
my
you know.
little 1 minute here, Miss Spitz. You know, it's always a pleasure to have you, and you know, you know, you come from the heart. You speak from the heart. You know, you're a learned person, right? You
I
know, you.
learn. I learn.
So we all continue to learn, right? And you know, I just hope that you know whatever you know we put out there tonight, you know, the public, you know, take away something good in it. And it's always a pleasure to sit in your company, Leonard.
Thank
It's
you.
always,
Good
it's
night,
always,
Belizean. Thanks for your patience.
but it's always good to have a
Thank you.
healthy discussion, you know,
Thank you very much,
healthy
Mr.
discussion.
Wade, for your input
Leonard,
and
it's
your
always a
help.
pleasure, my
Thank you
brother.
very much, Ms. Spitz, for
Yeah.
your contribution and your staying powers in terms of your advocacy. Difference of opinion doesn't enemy make of people with
Oh
goodwill.
no,
Am I right?
that's what makes the world interesting.
No, I'm talking to Sharon. I was trying to close out my comments.
Oh, I
So
don't
Sharon,
think that would be within our
no, I'm
diction.
saying
When I've
no.
mentioned that word, it has to do with the regime to the west,
But wait.
not
I'm going to say I
compatriots
got another
such as
argument
I
here
am
because
with.
time don't run out. um, I'm saying difference of opinion does not enemies make when it comes to good faith. Am I at least on a
Yeah.
good enough platform or a good enough point? Or is that a fair enough point to end on? Nevertheless, the bottom line is that we're grateful for Ms. Spitz, Mr. Wade, my cousin, when he's available, and any and all other people who grace our show and who call and comment on our show and who listens to our show at their own timing and convenience. As we have always said from the beginning of this platform, the establishment of this platform, the intent and the objective or the hope is that we will provide input of information, knowledge, whatever, to the general public, and in specific, hang our constitution around the necks of our governance individuals. That is, that demand that they comply with the constitution first and foremost. And we have not deviated from that. We have gotten to the point now where we physically have to, bits and pieces at a time, put out information on the constitution and cite different parts of it and so on. But that's not the only thing we do. We also deal with the issues of the day, which is why we have 3 different presentations for the week. We have the Monday program, we have the Wednesday program, and we have the Friday night program, like tonight's program. So all we want to do is say thanks to Belizeans at home and abroad for
One happy
in the,
Independence Day belatedly to
uh,
all our Belizeans.
oh,
I know America is a home to us and Belizeans, and with the rule of law, can shelter in America. America affords people from all countries freedom of expression, conscience, right to an not right, but
Okay,
the
Sharon,
privilege, but as
Sharon,
though it's a right to an
Sharon,
American
I have
dream.
10 more seconds left.
Thank you.
I have 10 more. I have 6 more left. Okay, I just want to say thanks to the people at home and abroad, Belizeans, for having tuned in, and hope that you'll consider to tune in again. And we hope that you have derived some public benefit from having listened to this particular program and others. Good night, Belizeans at home and abroad.
Good night. Good night. Good night. Good
Thank you,
night.
my panelists, colleagues. God bless.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
Good. God bless.